from New York. It's the Power Station podcast from Berklee, NYC. I'm your host, Stephen Weber. And in this episode, saxophonist, vocalist, and award-winning singer-songwriter Grace Kelly talks about her unique career, developing her artistry, and the special relationship she shares with her audience. Arjun Roy compares earbuds and headphones for working at home or in the studio. In the staff lounge this week, Ben Miller provides creative packing strategies for storing studio gear. And from the tape vaults, Roy Hendrickson speaks with journeyman engineer and former Berklee MP&E chair, Bill Scheniman. Grace Kelly is a musical prodigy who weaves together mastery of the jazz saxophone, virtuosic vocal technique, award-winning songwriting chops, the dance moves of a pop star, and millennial influencer-level social media skills into the energetic, athletic frame of a fashion-savvy Asian-American young woman. Kelly's early career featured performances at Barack Obama's 2009 inauguration at age 16 and at 14 as a soloist with the Boston Pops, playing an original composition arranged for the legendary orchestra. She has since played over 900 shows as band leader in 35 countries at venues like the Kennedy Center and Moscow Symphony Hall, and for the Montreal, Newport, and Montreux International Jazz Festivals. After studies at Berklee College of Music, Grace moved to New York, where she was a member of John Baptiste's house band for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Still in her mid-20s, Grace has released 13 acclaimed albums, including Go Time Brooklyn and Go Time LA, 2 video albums that reflect the contagious exuberance Grace brings to her art, and her audience enthusiastically returns. Grace Kelly, welcome to the Power Station podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm super excited to be here.
You're one of the only people I know, if not the only person that I know, who is a serious jazz improviser and also a great dancer and a great singer. I have to say, I've been doing some research, and I recently stumbled across some videos of you I hadn't seen. It seemed as though they were from when you were 8 years old and 10 years old. And the 10-year-old one was 6 weeks after you started taking saxophone lessons. Tell us the story of you getting started in music as a child.
I've always loved to express myself. My parents said that ever since I could talk, I was singing. I think from the age of 6, I was acting, singing, and dancing. But the sound of jazz, and particularly the sound of Stan Getz playing the saxophone, I think was embedded in my spirit and in my musical blood, because I found an absolute fascination with his tone, and I felt like every time he played the sax, it was like someone was singing to me. I think I made a mental note from even, 6, 7 years old of I love the sax, and I really connect it to the human voice and to just being so lyrical and beautiful and melodic like Stan Getz would play it.
What's the relationship of those two things in the way that you view music in the world?
I think because my first introduction to the saxophone was through someone who played so lyrically and beautifully like Stan Getz, my brain just made the connection of I'm singing his lines, he's singing to me, his sound is just hits me like the way a voice would, and is very comforting and beautiful and has so much depth. Because I've learned to phrase as a saxophonist who listens to a lot of singers, my goal is to sing through the saxophone. And then when I'm actually singing, people are like, wow, you're phrasing like a sax player. But that's because, the jazz theory in my head, the language that I've learned on sax, which actually a lot of that language that I've learned on sax, I first learned to sing in order to really internalize the theory, the language.
Did you come up with both of those things kind of being equal in your life always, or was one bigger at some time than the other?
My first connection to music was with singing. When I started the saxophone at the age of 10, I had an immediate connection with it. It was like the first time I picked it up and played it, I got a nice sound and I absolutely fell in love and became obsessed. Like I would not put it down until like 11 o'clock at night. And my parents were like, Grace, gotta go to bed, gotta get up. And it was unlike any other instrument. I never expected this music thing to be a career. It was just something I was so passionate about from a young age, found, loved, got really good at, fulfills my spirit. But what did end up happening is my sax playing started to go like skyrocket up. And then the jazz community was hearing about me, and saxophone did take a front seat for a lot of my younger years, but my vocals were kind of sounded like my age, but I continued to kind of progress both because I simply love doing both and expressing myself that way. In later years, I feel, especially now in the last couple of years, to have really stepped forward more singing and feel just more comfortable actually with my voice and where things have kind of settled in. And I feel like I can write songs for my voice.
Now, what about the dance piece of this? When did you start dancing, and how did that become such an integral part of your life?
In my very first CD release concert when I was 12 years old, which is when I recorded my first album, there was a song where I tap danced and played the saxophone at the same time. Somebody in my tap class who dared me and said, I bet you couldn't play saxophone and tap dance at the same time. And I was like, it's on. Oh my gosh. So I shed my butt off playing sax and tapping and trying to get those limbs to move at the same time. In the recent years, I've had so much fun discovering my love for movement and dance and expression and putting it into my shows and into my playing. I just didn't think that there was a place for it, you know, especially like playing an instrument. And I kind of shied away from it just from some of the mentality that I've learned from some of my past jazz teachers were telling me to be more still, or certainly not like busting a move.
Yeah, behave yourself, stand up there.
Yeah, I just didn't really know where it would fit. But then I started to gain inspiration from a frequent collaborator and friend of mine, Leo P. He's out doing his thing, dancing with the saxophone in the subways, had viral videos, was like super colorful doing his thing. And I remember the first time I met up with Leo, he started to show me some of his moves, and I had started to relearn some dance stuff. We started jamming and dancing, and it was like I had finally met somebody who kind of integrated those elements so masterfully and was having a conversation like, yeah, like let's try to do this together, and so that was a big moment for me to be like, ooh, here's another door of expression.
Imagine a lot of people were warning you, don't try to do all this stuff at the same time. What distinctions have you made from going your own path the way that you're going?
It kind of became this inner turmoil to me of like, I really know my spirit wants to connect with more people in a different way of just being on my instrument. I'm battling the thoughts in my head. You know, I'm sure this is a lifelong journey as an artist and something that I think is an ultimate teacher. It's like the things that people are telling me, or maybe even industry people, and I think it's important as an artist to just clear that space. Who's to say you can't do whatever you want to do?
What do you feel is unique about your work?
So something that I think is quite unique about my artistry and my performance is I always want to add that joyousness to my performance. I want to add vulnerability. I want to add connection to my audience. It's the most important part. So in my live shows, my favorite thing to do during my show is to get out in the crowd. And I literally walk around and I'm playing and I'm dancing and I stop and I look at somebody. And usually what happens is the person has a moment of just lighting up. I can see it. I can see it in their eyes. I can see it in their smile. Sometimes they jump up and they dance with me, which is so rockin'. I love that. I'm giving somebody an invitation in that moment to really strip away their ego, strip away what they think is cool or not cool, and just be playful, be fun, be joyous. Try to really get in touch with the parts of us that are almost like children. And so I always think about that when I connect with my audience. It's like, oh, I am so stoked that you're here and we're gonna play for these 90 minutes and we're gonna feel great and you're gonna forget all the troubles that are currently on your brain because
Exactly.
this is not
Yes.
the time and place for it. We're gonna have a great time.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation with Grace Kelly after this. And now, DIY music production tips with Arjun Roy.
Hi everybody, hope you're doing as well as can be. Since we're all working, learning, and meeting from home, monitoring audio and critical listening are more important than ever. Many of us may not have dedicated reference monitors at home. So here are some earbuds and over-the-ear headphones that have kept me working over the past several months. Number 1, Sony earbuds. These are about as basic as they can get. I bought these at the airport for $10. These fit my ears comfortably, and the sound quality is clear, though, as expected, the bottom end is not too prominent. So occasionally, reference audio can sound a little tinny. I keep these in my shirt or coat pocket all the time, and they work great for calls and meetings. What was that? Yes. Number 2, Skull Candy earbuds. These are also pretty basic, and I also bought these at the airport for about $25. What I love is this flat cabling. It really reduces tangles. These are comfortable and a little more snug, and they keep out more of the ambient noise. The audio quality is fuller than the previous set, with more noticeable low and low mids. These are great for all your Zoom meetings. I think you're muted. I think you're muted. Number 3, Apple AirPods, 2nd gen. You've seen these everywhere, I'm sure. I bought these at Best Buy for about $140. These are wireless, Bluetooth-ready earbuds that live in a wired charging case. I've always found that hard-molded earbuds feel like they're gonna fall out of my ears all the time. These feel okay, and the sound quality is clear. Simple sources like phone calls, FaceTime, and podcasts and such sound clear. Movies, TV shows, and music all sound even across the board. And sure, they look pretty cool.
Yes, to your point. No, you go first.
Now for some over-the-ear headphones. Number 1, Audio-Technica M50s. These are my trusty old reference headphones. I've had these for about 8 years now, since I was just a kid at Berklee College of Music in Boston. The sound is clear and EQ'd to be mostly flat, with just a little hype in the high end and low end, enough that you can hear what's there. The cans cover my ears comfortably and keep out a reasonable amount of ambient noise. I use these all the time for listening and monitoring needs in the studio. Number 2, Sennheiser 6X Open Back. I've owned these for about 2 years, and I use them for 50% of my mixing and critical listening these days. The fact that these are open back means that the sound isn't directed solely into your ears. They disperse a little bit out the back. This is great at preventing ear fatigue, as the listening experience is gentler overall. The EQ curve is flat and natural. Because these let in more ambient sound than closed back options, you wouldn't want to use these for live tracking in the studio, nor for critical mixing or listening in public. Number 3, Beats Solo Pro 2 Wireless. You've seen these everywhere, from the subway, airplanes, to the gym, where I definitely go all the time. They're Bluetooth ready, noise cancelling, comfortable, and colorful. Listening to music on these is fun because the high end and low end are hyped. I wouldn't use these as my main set of mixing headphones, but I would definitely test my mixes on these. The noise cancellation when engaged is phenomenal, and you can really focus as you need to. They fold up for storage and travel, and turn on and off when folded. These might just win for all Zoom meetings.
And those, I believe, to be the salient points. Thank you. I know.
What have you been using to stay productive from home? Be sure to let us know. Stay tuned for more, and be well.
Welcome back to our conversation with award-winning saxophonist, singer, and songwriter Grace Kelly. We're in a interesting moment in history right now between the COVID-19 and starting to really address structural racism in a way that hasn't been addressed before. I've seen you out there marching and protesting. Could you just kind of check in with us about this really unique time we're in? How's this been affecting you? What are your thoughts on where we are right now?
My gosh, yeah, there is so much going on. I have to say, the day that I was out for the We Are March, which was a peaceful protest led by Jean-Baptiste, who is a dear friend of mine, and I was in the house band for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in the first year for like 6 months, and I got to know John and the whole Late Show family really like family. I think we are in need more than ever of some great leaders.
Boy, that's for sure.
Yeah. And John, among the music community and the way that he went about that and leading that peaceful protest, He is such an incredible leader, and I admire him so much for, creating that beautiful ground for us all to use our instruments and sing with our voices. And I think that, like with anything, the first thing that we all need to do is cultivate deeper awareness, and most importantly, listening. Listening to people's stories. And I've been talking to some of my friends in the Black community and what they've gone through, and I'm learning so much and learning how to continually have this be a part of my everyday and to support my friends and the Black community, and using one's instruments and our voices, especially in moments that we feel like, how do we use ourselves and our voice best? It's a very interesting thing with COVID, because it's so wild to have your whole, year, all the live performances, everything you've been working on, everything you think your identity is based upon in your career, I'll just literally be poof. But I'm very grateful for this time to reflect and actually spend time digging into projects that I hadn't been able to give my full attention to in the past. I've been able to hold online workshops and teaching hundreds of students and nerding out on sax techniques and stage performance and also have a fan base. I'm looking at as an opportunity for a lot of creatives to really flex our entrepreneurial chops, which might be kind of challenging for a lot of people because that's not necessarily something we learned in music school. People have been able during this time to have really built up their digital online audience, and if they can almost make that its own functioning thing, then live shows should almost be like frosting on top. You know what I mean? I think that's the mentality.
Grace, what really matters to you these days?
I've been thinking a lot about authenticity and how to really just wrap my arms around it as an artist and as a person. There's a lot of noise, a lot of different trends and stuff, and the music business is continually changing so fast. And if you get all caught up in that, it's like a dog that sees a squirrel, it's like squirrel, squirrel,
Yes,
squirrel,
exactly.
squirrel, ball, squirrel.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, and I've definitely felt myself in those places. If I just tried to do a thing that I thought was trendy and people would like, I think people's BS radars are super, super up. So I think in the way that an ad might come across to you on your screen and just be really adsy, you just nix it, just X out.
Right.
But if someone came onto your screen that's really talking to you and is coming from an authentic place and you believe in what they believe and it just feels right, it's gonna come across authentically if it is you.
I feel like when I'm watching your social media or looking at your social media that you're approaching each one of these as an art form. Could you talk to us a little bit about the different ways that you're trying to use technology to communicate with your audience?
I do kind of find it like an art form. It's really interesting, Stephen, because it's when I was first starting saxophone and music, I never thought this would be part of my job. I'm sure nobody did. This is not something that my sax teacher said to me, oh, and by the way, you're going to be spending a lot of time on social media, and that's probably going to be just as important as your development in music, because I really do think of each platform having its own personality, and I think pretty critically about what content I'm going to post on each platform, whether this is an Instagram post, a Twitter post, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. My preferred social media is Instagram. A lot of the Instagram fans are definitely millennials or even Gen Zers. It can lend itself a little bit more to meme content or just super nerdy music comments. A lot of my older fans are on Facebook and they respond more to certain content. I do weekly live streams and I notice there's a huge participation on my Facebook. YouTube has been a great place to really put my longer form concerts out, to do my live streams. It's a really exciting time as a creator because I think you can make your art the way you want to make it and get it out to your audience.
Is there any advice that you can give to people who maybe are new to social media or maybe a little bit resistant and struggling with that portion of their career?
I highly recommend to anyone who's struggling with social media to think about it more as like a diary or a journal and to document yourself doing something, because people love seeing the documentation process and they love to hear about what you're struggling with and what you're learning, because it makes you as an artist like that much more relatable, and we're all human. I have met so many cool people through social media, and so many people find me that way. And so, you know, if you are building your brand and showing your personality, that might be the difference of getting a gig or getting a call from someone you want to work with because they checked you out and almost feel like they know you and know you'd be like a perfect fit for what they're trying to do. So if you kind of think about it as like a daily practice thing, you have your instrument, you have your art, but also the importance of connecting with your audience and, you know, keeping that digital business card and just having it be part of your flow.
So Grace, what would you say to aspiring artists and or band leaders who are wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps or do the kind of things that you're doing?
You really can create the musical world, the vision, exactly how you want it. You know, now with audio equipment and video, it's really easier and more affordable than ever to literally film a video anywhere in the world in your bedroom and potentially have it reach a lot of people. But you can learn all these skills, and it's something that I really recommend that anybody who's looking to further their career, be out there as a band leader, you need to learn how to do the artistic stuff. You need to get educated in the music business as well, because it is a business and it's important to be able to talk the same talk as other people. Learn audio, learn video, learn social media. And I think if you start to think about it, maybe instead of thinking about it like, oh my God, that's so much stuff, which is certainly how I feel some days, start to think about how you learned your instrument and really like approach it with curiosity. So know that it's all in your hands. That being said, nobody does this alone. And always remember that you are leading. You are the leader of the train. You just keep on choo-choo-chooing, my friends. Choo-choo-choo, lead that train.
Grace, thank you so much for being with us today on the Power Station podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a true pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
You can follow Grace Kelly on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, or visit her website at gracekellymusic.com. Here's Tales from the Tape Vault with Roy Hendrickson.
Hi there, I'm Roy Hendrickson, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Bill Scheniman. Bill was at Power Station near the beginning, where he recorded and mixed many albums, including NRBQ, Bruce Springsteen, Diana Ross, Chic, and Sister Sledge. Bill was also chairman of the Music Production and Engineering Department at Berklee College of Music in Boston for 9 years, where he also served as full professor for an additional 2 years. Bill, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
You're welcome. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, Roy.
Let's start at the beginning. I've always wanted to know how people found out about Power Station in the early days. Was there a buzz about it? Were people talking about it?
There were rumblings about it. I think I told you yesterday, I was working for Eddie Kramer, and he went to Spain for the summer and said, you know, you should get a job at a New York studio, so go around to a bunch of them and pick the one you want to work at, and I'll get you a job there. And I talked to a couple of people who were already engineers, and they said, don't do that, because everybody, wherever you wind up, will hate you because you jumped in line.
Right.
But somebody, and I don't remember who, I think it was a tech I knew from Electric Lady, because I was trying to find Neil to ask him advice. So I called Electric Lady, talked to one of the techs whose name I don't remember, and he said, well, Neil's working at this new place in Midtown called Power Station. So I think I just called information, got the phone number, got the address, drove down from upstate New York, and went and pushed the buzzer and walked up into this bomb zone of a lobby. There was no ceiling yet. There were wires hanging down and conduit open and concrete dust everywhere, and it looked like a disaster area. But you went through the door, and there was pretty much the lobby area outside of Studio A, and a little coffee bar was there and stuff, and Neil was doing a session. So I waited all day to talk to Neil, but I didn't want to bother him in a session. So while I was waiting, I kept busy. I washed the coffee pots. I made fresh pots of coffee when I saw it run out.
Sure.
They were building Studio B, so I carried concrete blocks in for an hour. And at the end of the day, Neil said, he finally met me. Hey, how you doing? You have to go talk to Gail. So I went upstairs and talked to a lady named Gail Frieda, who was the original studio manager. And she said, okay, I'll get you an appointment with Bob Walters. He's the co-owner. I came in the next morning and was all nervous. And they finally said, you can go upstairs and see Bob. And I went upstairs and, well, you know Bob. So there was Bob. And when he came in and sat down, he said, hi, who are you? Tell me a little about yourself. And I told him about Kramer. And I'd been a tour bus driver and a live sound guy. And I'd done everything you can do in the music business. He said, well, why are you here? I said, well, I want to work full-time at a real recording studio. And I knew Neil, and so I came here to find out about this place. He said, you were here all day yesterday. I hate it when people hang around my studio when they aren't, working here. So it never occurred to me all day that my partner Tony hadn't already hired yet, and we'd finally gotten a good guy. Because every time he saw me, I was working for the studio, even though I didn't work there yet. He hired me. He never looked at my resume. He said, I hate those fucking things. So I had a job. He hired me as an assistant. He said this could take a couple of years, and it didn't. It didn't take that long. I rose to the occasion each time. I worked my ass off. I actually lived in the building for a while. There were dorm rooms for the original house carpenters on the third floor.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't know if they made me an engineer because it was just an embarrassment to have an assistant that old or what. I mean, that was the best studio in the world. Already, it was the best studio.
Somehow people found out about it so early on, right?
Yeah, and we were an amazing team of house engineers.
Right.
You could book the place and say, I'll take who you give me and have a great set. Guaranteed. And it ran like clockwork. The sessions started when they were supposed to. They stopped when they were supposed to. The room was completely clean and zeroed out and ready for the next client between sessions.
Yeah.
There was almost no schmoozing. There was no attempt to make clients comfortable. Mm-hmm. None. The house carpenters built a couch in front of the Neve in both rooms, A and B. And when they got done with it and we were taking turns laying down on it, we went, hey, this is pretty good. Tony came in and said, put a table in the middle of it. I don't want people laying down in here. If you want to sleep, go to your hotel.
That's right.
We're here to work. That was why you were there. We were the buzz everywhere.
Right.
Have you heard about this place? I mean, nobody'd heard a live room in years.
Right.
Every place was dead. And all of a sudden, there's this room where if you hit the snare drum, it sounded like a gun had gone off. And everybody went, that's what records are supposed to sound like. And everybody else had to catch up. We were the guys all of a sudden.
Yeah. So when did you start working with Niall and Bernard?
I'd been around them a lot. Bob was, of course, their engineer.
Sure.
Bob liked me. I played tambourine on a bunch of Bryan Adams records, and I busted my ass for him. So we got along great. So he was starting to produce on his own. He had gotten to the point where his career had outgrown being a staff engineer. They needed a new engineer, and they already liked me. And so they said, let's start Crazy Bill. And we worked for 2 years straight.
2 years? Wow, amazing.
Yep. It was great fun.
Is that when we started to go freelance about that time?
Part of why I left was I'd gotten really typecast as just an R&B engineer because of all the time I spent with She. I did Luther Vandross's first single as a solo artist.
Nice.
And Diana Ross and Sister Sledge and Chic and Julio Iglesias. And, I did all these records. They're doing real well, but that's not what I'd grown up with, and that's not what I thought I wanted to do.
Sure.
I loved it because they were great guys and they were great records, but I wanted to do some rock and roll with bands again. So
what were your favorite records?
Bruce Springsteen wanted to cut a demo of a song he'd written for Donna Summer. It was called Protection. Mm-hmm. So he called me in to cut that demo, and we had a great time. I was pushing him because I didn't know better.
Sure.
And when I was engineering and there was no producer in the room, I was the producer.
Sure.
And so I go, come on, Bruce, you can do that again. Let's do that again. He goes, well, you want to save it? I go, no, we don't have to save it. I'll just go over it. Come on, let me rewind. Let's do it again. And the band was looking at me like, oh my God, what Bruce loved it. He absolutely loved it. And at one point, he did a solo. And I said, wow, Bruce, you're a really good guitar player. And the band looked like, oh no, lightning. All he said was, oh, Wild Bill, man. Nobody ever says anything like that to me anymore. Thanks.
That's awesome.
So I'm mixing Protection because it's got to be FedExed.
Sure.
Right at night. And it's already like 11 o'clock at night. And he comes in, he goes, hey, Bill, Wild Bill, you got another one in you? He said, I wrote another song while I was killing time. So we cut Cover Me.
Really? Wow.
So that's one of my favorite songs.
That's so great. Wow, that's awesome. That's a great record.
And 2 years later, when they were putting together Born in the USA, or a year and a half later, whatever it was, I had left the studio. I had just gone independent, was struggling. And Bruce, when they were starting to figure out what the final content of the LP would be in the CD, he said, where's that thing Wild Bill did? I want to put that on there. He did 3 takes. And I said, okay, just give me 15 minutes and you can hear this back. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm gonna cut those takes together. The first take was the best except for the bridge, and the bridge is great on the second take. So let me put those together so I can hear it back. He goes, you gonna do a rough mix? I said, no, I'm gonna cut the multi-track. He goes, you can cut the fat tape? And I said, yeah, Bruce, I do it all the time. He goes, guys, you gotta come in. Bill's cutting the fat tape. And I was really fasted. I literally had been tape editing since I was 11 years old. I played it back for him. He goes, well, Bill, you beat my nemesis. You whipped my nemesis. You're the nem whipper. Nobody had ever done that for him. Looking at my life, looking at the span of my years, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. How could I have had a better life? I never had a job I didn't love going to.
Not that many people are that lucky, you know.
No, of course not. There's people with more money than me. There's people with lots of bigger houses, and they still have their wives and lots of things. I got to do my favorite thing my whole life.
Sure. I'd like to thank you for spending all this time, you know.
It's been my pleasure, Roy. And you and I share one of the best times of my life. And you're always filed in that folder.
Thanks, man. You as well. Great times.
All right.
Let's visit the staff lounge with Ben Miller.
During studio renovations, most of our gear went into storage. I'm about to share with you some tips, tricks, and secrets we've learned for storing your vintage gear safely. Here we are, ready to take vintage gear and store it safely. Up first, the Shure SM58, a common microphone. Hold it, sing into it, then place it on your table, where it rolls away. Naughty little microphone. What shall we do with it? Unscrew the top. Lefty-loosey, of course. The body of the microphone is extremely durable, just leave it to the side. Optimal storage for the remaining windscreen is this egg carton. Open the carton and place a windscreen where an egg would go. I removed the eggs before filming. Cartons provide crush protection and are vertically stackable while holding 12 microphones. Now for this DPA lavalier microphone, we must consider a different storage solution. Here is a 100% cotton black sock. Stuffing the lavalier microphone into the sock will provide cushioning and water protection while in storage. After shoving the microphone into the sock, give it a spin. This microphone is safe. Let us now move on to a pair of Audio-Technica headphones. On these, the left and right ear cups plus the cable can all be secured with 2 socks. If you are extra cautious, consider laundering the socks prior to use. After being fully stockinged, the handle remains available. Next comes our double-walled pop filter. As these are long and flexible, here's what we'll do. Place a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc at the center of your workspace. Starting at the base, wrap the filter around the bottle. Moving right along, here's a TLM 49. Conventional wisdom puts this mic into this anti-static bubble wrap. We prefer not to use bubble wrap because bubbles can pop. The condition of our legendary mics is exquisite because we use leaves of cabbage. Organic, pasture-raised, locally sourced cabbage provides the most protection of any cruciferous vegetable. Unwrap the microphone for use and it emanates a pleasantly fresh aroma. A cheerful waft of warm cabbage is synonymous with high-fidelity sound. Next, this is an exemplary TRS patch cable with connectors at both ends. So, you've got your cable and you've got your 2-inch galvanized steel pipe. Identify the end of the pipe, then insert the connector, then gently feed the remaining cable into the pipe. It will slide in all the way. Finally, I wish to present to you the Jaunt 1 360-degree camera. The 24 ultra-high resolution lenses spaced throughout the body provide an unique challenge. Therefore, the only possible solution is an extra-large yoga ball. This latex sphere will simply bounce off any hazards, and the large diameter provides ample cushioning. Do you store your power supplies in hollowed-out eggplants? Let us know in the comments below.
That's it for this episode of The Power Station at BerkleeNYC. Contributors include Ian Kagey, Ryan Nava, Glenn Forsythe, Ben Miller, Edica Tello, Arjun Roy, and Roy Hendrickson. I'm Stephen Weber. If you'd like to hear more, subscribe. To engage, leave us a comment. Thanks for joining us.